morning. Welcome back to the Mayor's Table. I'm Mayor Tommy Roberts, and my guest this morning is David Sypher, who is the Director of Public Works at the City of Farmington. David, it's good to have you back as a guest.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So David, this morning we're going to talk about our pavement management system. And I want you just to start out this segment by describing in general and giving an overview of what that is.
What we want to do is spend the taxpayers' money wisely. We, in order to do that, need to know the condition of our streets so that we're not overlooking streets that would be more efficient to spend our money on than other streets. So in order to do that with some knowledge, we need to be able to go out and do an inventory of our street systems. And nowadays, it's a very sophisticated. When I first started in my career, we would have to do that all, just walk each street and do an evaluation. Now it's driven with the equipment at about 50 miles an hour, and it's a very sophisticated and I would say a more consistent process now.
So I guess my first thought when I began to learn a little bit about this system was that, you could probably hire me and save a lot of money, and I could go out and tell you which roads looked bad and which looked worse and which looked fairly good. But it's not that way, and you alluded to that already, that that's the kind of the old system, but now technology has evolved in such a way that we can really get a very, very good handle on the condition of our streets. So talk about how that's done. What is the technology?
Well, the technology we're using today, you mount your computer and your lasers and your cameras in a truck, and you can actually calibrate everything that you need so that when you go out, you have in detail a condition, the distress condition of a street, whether it has longitudinal cracking, horizontal cracking, the patchings that are out there, what type of total condition that you have in your street. And so it's a nice analysis. You're getting actual laser measurements of the distance of the crack, the closeness and spacing you call the density of the cracks, and just a total solid condition survey that you're getting that's even-handed. It's a standard, and it's not subjective. It's far more objective.
So once this process is utilized on a street segment, how are those results used in comparison to the results that are received from any other pavement segment assessment? So again, I'm trying to understand what is the feedback that you get? What are the conclusions that are drawn?
Sure. If you wouldn't mind, Mr. Mayor, maybe I could refer to this little chart back here. Our deterioration curve explains kind of the science behind things and gives more reason to why this data is very, very necessary. In the first place, when we have put down asphalt pavement, we're really usually talking about a life of anywhere from 0 to 22 years. In our local streets, we may get 22 years out of a street. In a high-use arterial where you have 30 or 40,000 average daily traffic flow, you may only get up to only 5 years of use. So this is a typical deterioration curve, and when you put down asphalt in the first place, you have, of course, an excellent rating, and we would grade that at a 100. And then as it totally turns to nothing but rubble, we would grade that at a 0. Mm-hmm. These are the categories, the typical categories that are given. And so as you know where you're at, you'll see that it isn't a linear curve, it's an exponential curve. And so you get out to this point, and all of a sudden you tank straight off on that curve. So whereas it might take $1 to maintain your pavement at this stage, which we call a satisfactory stage, all of a sudden if you go just 1 year, maybe 2 more years, all of a sudden you're down to paying $5 to $7 to repair that same section of road. So it becomes critical to catch it before you fall off the cliff, so to speak. And so that's why it's so important. We do our condition assessment, get these OCI, or overall condition index ratings, and know where we're at, because there's a different fix and a different cost associated with the different fixes at each given stage.
So we use this data to help us prioritize our repaving projects.
Absolutely.
And I take it that we want to begin to do something to remediate pavement at a point at which we're still at a satisfactory performing level. Once we fall below that, we're at the fair level, that maybe we can still maintain our roadways at a fair level. But when we get down into that below fair, into the poor and very poor and serious and critical, then it's beginning to cost us a lot more money to remediate those roadways.
Yes, and so if you give me $5 to spend, so to speak, and I've got to go out and do 5 roads with that $5, and it's cost me $1 per road for those that are up in this part of the curve, the satisfactory level, then that's where the taxpayers want me to spend my money, because that's where it's very effective. So I can get a 5-to-1 return on your dollar, or I could take that $5 and do one street that has to be reconstructed. So that's the kind of comment I get all the time is, well, this street over here is far worse. Why haven't you done it? Well, it's because we want to spend our money on the streets before they get to the reconstruct stage, because we get a 5-to-1 return, or sometimes you could even say a 7-to-1 return on our investment as for the taxpayers. So it's kind of a no-brainer.
Since we've adopted this pavement management system and this assessment system, how successful have we been in getting to these projects and remediating these declining roadways before they get to the poor level?
Success is going to be measured over the expanse of time. So I think that we did a great job of actually getting the remedies out this year, as is evidenced by the orange barrels. And I think while it took some patience by our citizens, it's going to pay great dividends in the future. So from my perspective, it really looks like we've gotten really good success in our first few years of using this systematic approach.
So it's kind of a preventative type of approach. But,
oh, absolutely.
But do we have an inventory of roadways that are currently in the poor to very poor category, the serious category that we can't get to because of restricted funds, lack of funds?
We do, and we feel like there'll come a time when we'll need to address those. But at the moment where we're at, we have about a $4.5 million budget a year, where we do everything from crack seal and slurry seal to actual pavement overlays. And so we utilize that full range of treatment for different conditions at different OCI ratings, or whether it's excellent, critical, or wherever it is in the range. And we make use of whatever the appropriate remedy would be.
So I think what I'm understanding, but you may want to correct me because I may misstate it, but it seems that we have certain number of road miles that are currently in poor, very poor condition, maybe even serious condition, maybe even critical condition.
Right.
They're in the pipeline.
Yes.
But they may remain in the pipeline as we prioritize maybe road miles that aren't quite there yet, but are approaching that status of poor or very poor, and we don't want them to get there. Is that a fair assessment?
That is an awesome assessment, and it's right on. And so let's just call it 50 miles of bad roadways that we have. Really, we need to look for an alternate funding solution for those, rather than take our money and lose that 5-to-1 rate of return by spending that money on those streets, and then just compounding the problem. And instead of having 50 miles after the next 10 years, let's say we end up with 100 miles. We don't want to go there. That's a very expensive alternative. So until we get the additional funding, really the remedy has to be that we would focus in on the maintenance level at the satisfactory level.
And so the assessment system itself is a part of a vehicle.
Yes.
And the vehicle travels down these roadways and is making this assessment of the condition of the pavement.
Yes.
And what does it cost us to have that technology available to us? And is it technology that we own, or do we lease that technology?
Oh, we actually contract that out, and in this case, there's state purchasing bids, and there's also other conglomerative bids that we can utilize. We did in this case use that, and it's costing just under $100,000 for that survey every 3 years.
Every 3 years, so $33,000 a year,
That's
essentially is what it is.
That is correct.
And so in your assessment as the director of the Public Works Department, you can justify that expenditure for the return on the other side.
Oh, it's
as saving of taxpayer dollars as we get to these projects when they need to be
an incredible
addressed.
Savings, Mr. Mayor, an incredible savings, yes. It's instead of shooting in the dark, we're doing it well informed, and by so doing can keep these streets treated with the least amount of cost.
Yeah. It's very interesting. And I want to thank you for being here today to give this information to our viewers. Anything you would like to add that we haven't addressed with one of my questions?
Well, I think that's a pretty good quick summary. We would like, of course, to utilize everything in our tool bag. And I could share some of the things that's in our tool bag that we utilize. Also, just to inform people, when we go out there and get this data, it isn't just the distress data that's gathered. The first year that we did this, we actually got all of our sidewalk data, our sign data, our wheelchair ramp data, all the ADA compliance inventory. And so there's a broad spectrum of information that we use and that is valuable to us in this process.
Yeah. I think there's probably plenty more that we could talk about that would be of interest to our viewers, but I think we're going to wind this segment of the Mayor's Table down.
Okay, thank you.
David, thank you for being here, and again, a very interesting topic.
Thank you.
I want to thank all of you for being with us once again on the Mayor's Table, and we'll look forward to seeing you again next Monday.